that I hesitate to say it will arise naturally because I don't want to dismiss it. However, I feel like that those conversations are already happening, and I think they will continue to grow.
And I think that civilization, in addition to McKenna's statement, civilization takes us away from nature. There's a Karl Marx quote that says, "The further we are from nature, the more we fear death." And that's very true. We have all these kinds of infrastructures and systems to support life and to lengthen this anthropocentric view of the world. And we have computers that we communicate with other humans with. Sometimes I'm texting and my friend's trying to talk to me and I'm kind of ignoring her because, I'm texting. And it's like, wait, let me look at this human who's in front of me and not this machine. And it's sick. It's sick that I'm so separated from nature and what's natural around me. And even the clothes that we wear and the building that we're in right now, it is all this systematic separation from nature. And I think that the closer we get to nature, the less we will fear death, and the more we will be, like McKenna said, interdependent with our natural cycles of decomposition and rebirth.
Okay. Brown coat?
I have a question, and I'm really glad that I found you guys, because I have a 13-year-old daughter. She's going to public school, and I've always been an environmentalist, whatever. But, I wanted her to read and write and learn math. But now I'm increasingly frustrated, of course, with the irrelevant education but you guys are fresh people from the education system now, and I'm just wondering if you have any really good ideas for better things to do with a teenager right now.
I'll start. I can tell you one of the most popular subjects in our discussion group is talking about the educational system, our experience in college, and how much it sucks. And, sorry to say that, and especially with paying 14, was it 17,000 a year for
Yeah,
Western?
and I think we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Wait for everyone to de-educate themselves after college,
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot you can do because, like Dylan said, getting a degree is like buying wisdom, and people take you more seriously if you have a degree. So I know a lot of people are kind of looking at their college education like that because, to an extent, our education systems, they really try to de-radicalize us, and they really shoot down our opinions and what we know, and it's really troubling. But yeah, we're still trying to figure that out ourselves, obviously.
Probably extracurricular stuff for the rest of her life kind of thing.
Fairhaven College is an amazing college as far as being able to choose your own degree. McKenna knows a lot more about that. I don't know if you want to add something.
Outside of pre-college, I would just say that it's going to depend quite a bit on the individual, and so any solution that would be proposed, I think, needs to acknowledge that specificity and encouraging the expansion of any kind of passions that your child might have, following those natural drives and feeding those fires and making things relevant, making things personal. That was my largest frustration through elementary, and even at times was the absence of applicability. So everything from learning how to be in your immediate environment, feeding yourself, etc., to understanding the global connections through history in any subject, it can be made relevant. The system has just done a really good job of pulling most of the juice out of it. So.
And I attribute my interest in this and my openness to learning about all this and coming to the opinion that I have, mostly from the love that I got from my parents, honestly. And they were the ones that nurtured that relationship I had between myself and the elk and that meadow across from my house. And if they hadn't done that, I don't know if I would be a different person right now. I'm sure I would. But for me, it's, love is important.
Yeah, let's just go to the next question. Kate, you had one next? You were next?
I was just going to add something onto that there's a really strong unschooling movement that's been, especially in the past decade, I'd say, has been becoming stronger and stronger among young people who are very motivated to learn things outside of what they would get from the traditional educational system. And there's, right now you can connect with the internet and various websites, but there's also magazines and all kinds of tools for young people who choose to school themselves. And you can still get into quite a few colleges would be very open to a person who's so dedicated to following their own passions that they decide to school themselves and get a better education that way. So I think if you want to, if she wants to go to college and still not have to learn traditional, there's plenty of options for her.
Okay.
So.
Timmy, something?
I was just wondering, for people interested in the resistance, both above and below ground, where else can we go to look for information, to look for ethical models of how to carry out the resistance for groups who are active in this country that we might want to learn from and be involved in? What groups are there and what literature can we look at?
Well, we have a list of recommended readings actually at the table in the back of the room. As classic as that is to say, we do have quite a bit of material that we encourage you to check out. And that's a large discussion.
So there are three main groups that are being represented up here. Myself and a few of the rest of us are involved with a group called Fertile Ground, which is an organization, nonprofit organization that is putting together speaking events like this, really based around education, outreach, training leaders. And so we should have more events like this in the future in the Whatcom County area and eventually spreading out to the national and international levels. There are a couple more groups. Anybody else want to?
Deep Green Whatcom is a recently formed organization that is encouraging community autonomy through focusing on local resistance.
And they have a table back there for Deep Green Whatcom. There's currently a lot of projects happening that need leadership and need taking off. And as Dylan mentioned, has been talked about a lot, is the discussion group against civilization. We're opening it up to more ages now. And there's more information at the table about times and dates for that. But it's a really great place, at least, to just talk about ideas and gain resources, exchange books, etc. So that's what I recommend.
One more quick thing. I found that the hardest thing about organizing is that this culture trains us to be so individualist. It trains us to not talk to each other and to not share anything with each other. So I think one of the most important things that we've been doing just when we started out is to form a community and to become a strong social group. And I would really encourage you, if you're interested in any of this, please come talk to us afterwards, because we'd love to talk to you about this. And this is what we do. Activism is not something that you do on the weekends when you have an hour here and there. It has to be your life if you want to succeed. And that's what it is for all of us up here. So please come talk to us.
Okay, first on black leather jacket.
Okay, so I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm a big enthusiast for this, and I really respect the fact that you bring so much energy to it. One thing that I have noticed in my own adventures talking to people about peak oil and the future, a lot of the time they have a concept that's often religious, and they see it as like God's plan that all this is taking place today. They kind of have dominated the market of the end of the world. And so one of the hardest things, and I think it's really important to find common ground with people so that we can talk about the same thing, but then how do you get past this belief that it's supposed to be this way?
Yeah, that's a tough one, I would say.
I
mean, it's very convenient. Oh, actually, please.
I'd like to make a comment. Sorry.
No, go for it, please.
Being a non-Catholic and attending events that, company started by an Irish guy, and that means you have to have a priest blessing everything as everything goes on. And the priest that came out for this particular event said, "I know a lot of you aren't Catholic. Haven't seen you in church in a long time. I'd like you to say a prayer with me. Even if you don't believe it'll help, I guarantee you it won't hurt." In the same respect, even if this is just a test and you're going to heaven or hell afterwards, You may be right, you may be wrong, but good stewardship of the world we live in while you're here won't hurt. You know, even if your religion is absolutely right, you can still take care of the world you live in now. And if your religion was right, great, no problem, no harm done. If your religion was wrong, you hedged your bet and you live well here. So I think the response is reciprocal.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
You might add something?
Yeah, let me add. I'm not sure who you've heard that from, but I can say from my experience, the people who I've heard say those kind of things, you know, like this is possibly the next step in evolution, that we just need to accept it and roll with it. For me, those have generally been people in high positions of privilege. And I think that's crucial because it's a lot easier to say that when you go home and you can play Nintendo Wii or something, but it's very different when the weight of this culture is pressing down on you and you're living off the land or you're living check to check. I think one thing important is to call out that privilege, of course respectfully, but it is important to call that out.
One more thing, if people say even that this is natural, along the same lines as, you know, this is evolution. And it's like, okay, everything we do is natural. If everything we do is natural, why isn't creating a resistance movement also natural? You know, and that's just something I think about when people say that.
Gentleman standing in the back.
If systems need to be dismantled to protect the earth from industrial science forces, could you be more specific about how you propose to go about dismantling those systems?
This is a common question, and I live in Bellingham. This is the place that I know, and so this is the place that I can talk about. People in New Mexico are going to be doing very different things to dismantle their infrastructure than we are here, and it's the same across the world. People have to dismantle the infrastructure where they are. So in Whatcom County, what are the main ways that we contribute to the global economy that's killing the earth? We have 4 major oil refineries. We have a major oil pipeline. We have a major transportation corridor. Those things need to be shut down if the world is going to survive. If runaway global warming is going to be stopped, we have to shut down those systems in our backyards soon. And what will that look like? I think a broad range of tactics are needed. And I think we're going to have that discussion tomorrow at the organizing event. So I'd encourage you to please come join us for that.
If I can jump onto that also, there was a woman at the beginning who was talking about industrial hemp production and it will be creating more jobs. And my initial reaction, which I think even the environmental movement has made us scared to say this, but my main interest is not in making more jobs at all. And I'm not interested in further industrialization. I know she mentioned that it wasn't necessarily industrial in the way we're thinking about, but really what I want, and speaking for myself here, but I believe that others believe this as well, and I believe there are a lot of people who are within the environmental movement who feel this way, but don't feel comfortable to say it because they're spoken down to when they do. But I want active deindustrialization, absolutely, and I think we need to be asking these questions. Yeah, and eat it.
Okay, Fran, sure.
What do you say to the idea, the fact that you were talking about privilege earlier and how people are talking about this from a point of privilege? When you're talking about deindustrializing to get back to nature, to preserve, wilderness, to preserve salmon runs, how do you respond to that when people point out the fact that Europe was completely deforested way pre-industrial civilization? We are privileged here to have that wilderness in part because of the industrial mechanism that's allowed our structure, our civilization to take advantage of those resources in much more efficient ways than we could have pre-industry.
If I can just go quick really first, and thanks for pointing that out because it's true. Speaking for myself, I am in a position of high privilege in this culture. Why I feel comfortable doing this and justify it is because I think I am speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking for people that will be here next generation, 2 generations from now, 5 generations from now. And what would they want us to be saying? Are they going to be asking for more compost piles and more protesting. It's like, I don't think so. I think they're going to be looking back and saying, why did you let these oil refineries keep going? Why did you switch to clean coal when you all knew that was bullshit? So that's why I feel comfortable. And I also feel, and this goes in terms of being an ally for anyone, human or non-human, if you're an ally, of course letting them speak first, but in times when they've been silenced, speaking on their behalf, acting on their behalf as much as you can. And so I believe acting myself, I believe I'm speaking on behalf of those in the future, as well as those marginalized groups that can't speak right now.
I guess more my point, my question is along the lines, sorry, that we have those resources, like the fact that forests get cut down is not a matter of industrialized nations or non-industrialized nations. It's a matter of humans' needs, how stable their lives are, and the removal of that of an industrial infrastructure could just as easily create an instability that makes us not manage our resources efficiently.
Well, the removal of that infrastructure, I mean, we've reached peak oil, at least that's pretty much a consensus right now. But if we take down the infrastructure, we probably won't have enough oil to create this civilization to this scale again. We're not going to be able to be extracting resources on this level. Things are going to look a lot different. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is that we're in a different condition here than people are on the East Coast or in Europe, where civilization has been wreaking havoc for a long time. And I think the title of the group against civilization is called that. Civilization is from the Latin root civitatis, which means city dweller. And what is a city? We define a city as a group of people living in concentration large enough that they have to import resources. They can't get everything that they need from their local area. And so that's when you get a condition of unsustainability, when people are living in those dense concentrations. And I think that one of the main reasons that we have such a beautiful environment around here, that we can enjoy the forests that we have, even though almost all of it is second or third or fourth growth. There's little patches of old growth here and there, tucked far up in the mountains. But the reason that we can enjoy that is because that deforestation, that violence is being exported. We import lumber from British Columbia, where great rainforests are being clear-cut at a huge rate. We import lumber from Indonesia, where Indonesia is the third largest contributor to greenhouse gases because they're cutting down their forests at an incredible rate.
We have 10 minutes left. I want to make sure everybody gets their questions in.
So in one of the gentleman's book, he has a premise in the beginning of it that I think it can be interpreted different ways, but for discussion's sake, I sometimes interpret it as the collapse is inevitable, and why not, and it basically says that we should, the longer we extend the collapse, the longer we take for it to, the longer we let it go for, the worse it's going to be for whatever's left. So I guess my question then is, why not, vote for Sarah Palin and then just let everything fuck itself, why not, why not burn everything we have and stop recycling, stop composting, because then we're gonna have, then if that, if our collapse is in a year instead of 5 years, all those 120 species that would have died off aren't gonna have the chance to have died off. So why not do it faster? Why? Just devil's advocate wise, why not hurry up that process and screw ourselves immediately?
That's a great idea, and I wish that it would work. It's kind of the flip side of trying to vote for Obama to make change and trying to recycle to make change, because it's still an individual contribution, and it doesn't have as much to do with confronting the systems of power. And when I look at this issue, I don't look at what can I do as an individual to contribute or not contribute to the society. And I think that it has to do more with personal integrity when you make those individual decisions. But on a larger scale, how am I going to take out the entire system of power? not my little contributions to it as a college student, but how am I going to look at this problem and create a solution that matches the scale of the problem? And the truth is that the scale of this problem is civilization as a whole. And so we need a solution that can confront civilization as a whole. And I just don't see that individual contributions, whether it be recycling so that, there's more aluminum that we can perpetuate having more Coke cans or whatever, or whether it is to, crash and burn everything and try to be really destructive so that it goes out faster. I'm focusing on what will it take to confront systems of power.
Also, creating a culture of resistance and doing this kind of work, at least I see it this way, will most likely help alleviate the crash, I think. Having these cultures, having people in different roles, doing different activities. If we have this community of resistance, we'll probably be able to, at least the people that are really pushing for this, we'll probably be able to, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Save the planet.
Just
Yeah. I kind of hesitate to say that, but being ready.
We just had a few more minutes, so you were next.
I have a question. First, I respond to the issue of divine calling for dominating the planet. That there are many religions across the world, but the three dominant Abrahamic faiths, Christianity and this society, uses that as an argument, and it's actually a mistranslation from the book of Genesis, referring domination instead of the original word, which is more like stewardship. It's the very same kind of thing that mistranslated the gender-neutral word for God and made it he that's used to dominate women. My question is, we started all this off with testaments about wisdom and how young people are often not believed to have the ability to have much wisdom. And yet, if you look at what you're doing, you are one of the few people in our society who have stepped off of the treadmill and have looked at what the treadmill is doing and what your role is. And that's a profound expression of wisdom. My question is, where do you get it? You are part of one of our society's highest temples of wisdom, in the universities. And I'm wondering how much of it you got from there, and if not, is there any way of reforming that temple to provide the real wisdom that we're talking about, or does it really have to go on outside?
I think that for me, it really comes from love and community and focusing on what is real in this world. And I grew up in a very strong community of all different age groups and taking care of children and having older people that I listened to. And I looked at the rest of the world around me and I said, all of this is crap. None of this matters, And what really matters is my intimate relationships with the humans and non-humans that surround me, and living in my environment and being able to experience the beauty of nature and the beauty of human interaction and love. And when you focus on things that are real and things that move your heart like that, there's no way that you're going to say, I'm going to advocate that this piece of paper with a $ sign on it means something to me, because it just doesn't. It's just real, and it has no basis in reality for me. And so for me, coming to Bellingham and meeting with this group of people and a lot of people in the audience and forming that solidarity and that community and saying, what is real in our lives and how can we protect this? And how can we get rid of everything that is not real?
We have that question, then we have this one.
Well, based on my comprehension of Derek Jensen came through Portland, that's one of the questions I was asking him. And it was also, I'm a history buff, and so the members of the Velvet Underground, they admitted later in life that they pretty much played right into the FBI's hands. The FBI wanted something to crack down on. Basically, so that way they could find the people who didn't agree with everyone, isolate them, and say they were basically, isolate them. And so right now we're in a situation where, for example, if the refineries, basically Portland gets most of our gasoline through the refineries up here. So even on the very long term, if Hanford is not getting the materials needed to keep that everything, all that irradiated material there, basically the entire Columbia river down from there would be basically irradiated for 10, 20,000 years. So I'm wondering if the strategy that is actually one of the guys who survived the gulags is actually might be a more appropriate strategy. Basically, don't fear them, don't hate them, don't have anything to do with them. So it's basically we're setting up a situation so if you're creating an oppositional system, they have all the power and they have the guns. So I'm not saying don't resist, but just watch out for the tactics. That's it. Yeah. What do you think?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's something we think about a lot. I think one of the reasons that there are so few people saying the things that we're saying and in this position is because it's fucking scary, you know? Like, it's a really intimidating position to be in. And because of that, we have to be very careful about what we say and what we do. Now, none of us up here are doing anything illegal. And we're not going to do anything illegal. Because we've got big, fat targets on our chest.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, the FBI and the CIA probably know everything about us. And that's just something that we have to live with. And knowing that, it's like, okay, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to save the planet from being killed. We're trying to stop the runaway global warming that would kill 95% of all species, including humans, likely. I'm scared. Let's move on.
Right. You know, we made a commitment that we'll be done at 1:30, so I'm going to ask Brian, you guys finish up, read your statement, and then everybody here will be available to speak afterwards if you'd like to.
If these industrial problems are all worldwide, what are you doing to connect with other groups like yourselves around the world?
I would say we haven't gotten that far quite yet. I feel like at least fertile ground is in this sort of fermenting stage, what I call it for some reason, where we're just trying to make the best damn speeches and the best damn workshops we can before we, go public like this. And so this is one of our first major events. But things are already happening.
Yeah.
Things are already happening. Like I talked about mint. They've reduced oil production by 40% in the Niger Delta. Other resistance movements have been happening and are happening. So it's not a matter of us really starting a resistance movement. We're joining a resistance movement that's already happening.
And that's going to wrap it up. And
we just wanted to mention that although the panel members here hold a variety of passions and beliefs, we recognize that all of our futures share a common destination. And we either radically shift our tactics and confront industrial culture, or we lose the very places that we all call home. So we'd like to ask that you seriously consider what has been discussed here today and invite you to join us for more discussion later. Thank you.
I urge you all to go check out the Deep Green Whatcom table. We have sign-up lists for emails and stuff. We have a lot of projects that are going to be going on and people that we can all talk to you about it, and we're really excited about it. So.
And thank you guys for being a great audience.
Thank you.